Welcome to my retirement boot camp. Now that we have the pleasantries out of the way, I want to introduce you to Drill Sergeant Azul. All right, maggots, listen up. We've got 3 obstacles in front of us today. And once we get past those 3 obstacles, we'll be in a much better position to retire. Who's with me? Okay, that's enough of Drill Sergeant Azul. But candidly and truthfully, we all face 3 main obstacles to being able to retire early or retire at 65 or at any age. So let's jump in and talk about what those 3 obstacles are. And the last one is the most difficult to overcome, but I have to go through the first 2 to give you the background. And sorry about that noise. I'm here at a train station. Extra kudos to anybody that can point out in the video comments where I'm at today. But let's jump in. The first obstacle is figuring out, of course, do we have enough money to retire? And you know what? This is a very solvable problem for us, right? We can get in the ballpark, and I'll talk about how we get in the ballpark. But you don't want to be in the ballpark. You want to know, you want to have a high level of confidence that you have enough money to retire. And it's a solvable problem, right? I'll get you in the ballpark. This is not financial advice, but you can hire a financial advisor, preferably a fee-only financial advisor, to answer this question for you. And I don't know what they're going to charge you, but generally it's $2,000 to $5,000. And I know that might sound expensive, but think of the peace of mind that comes with knowing that you have enough money to retire. Okay, so ballpark level, how do you know? How do you know if you have enough money to retire? Well, you look at which kind of cash flows that you need in retirement. And then you say, how much of those cash flows are going to come from outside of my investments? How much is going to come from Social Security? If you're fortunate enough to have a pension that you worked hard for and you earned, many folks don't have a pension, but factor in what that looks like and really come up with what cash flows in total do you need in retirement and where is that going to come from? And most of us are going to have a gap, right? We might have a rental property, that's cash flows. We might have Social Security coming in, that's cash flows. Others might have a pension, that's cash flow. But we add it all up and say, I don't have enough. And that's 99% of us. So where does the rest of it come from? The rest of it comes from your investment account. And just ask yourself, as you look at it on a yearly basis, how much money do you need to come from your investments? And then look at that and say, is that reasonable? Can I have that money come from my investment accounts? And there's a gentleman by the name of Bill Bengen who came up with what is now called the 4% rule. So you can look at those cash flows on a yearly basis and say, the inverse, the opposite, if you flip 4%, you get 25. So look at those cash flows and multiply it by 25. For instance, if from your investment accounts you needed $20,000 a year, you multiply that by 25, that would say you need $500,000. Okay, so high level, that's obstacle number 1. Now, again, this isn't financial advice. I encourage you to work with a fee-only financial advisor. And the reason is, if you don't have a high level of confidence in your retirement and your plan, you're likely to either unnecessarily sacrifice and not spend the money that you could spend. And unfortunately, you won't know till later. And so in your healthiest and most active years, most people end up sacrificing unnecessarily. So I think, $2,000 to $5,000, admittedly, I'm biased, but it's a small price to pay for the confidence. Okay, back to Drill Sergeant Azul. All right, now we've got the first obstacle out of the way. It's time for obstacle number 2. Who's with me? Okay, obstacle number 2 for many people, if you're retiring early, if you're in your late 40s, your 50s, or your early 60s, at least for Americans, we have the situation of what are we going to do for healthcare? And if you're within 18 months, within 15 months, you have Cobra if you're working and you have healthcare through through your insurance, through your employer. So Cobra is one option. Now, I am not a healthcare insurance specialist, but there are people that do that. And I would encourage you to look for somebody. Again, this is a solvable problem. And so work with professionals, find out what those options are, do your homework. You're probably less than 20 hours away from being able to understand what healthcare insurance is going to cost you. And a word of caution, you don't want your Cobra to take you right up till Medicare. It's one of the main causes for people that are in their 64, 65-ish, where they end up with a gap where they are uncovered. They thought they were covered, but it takes a couple months. You've got to give Medicare notice before you enroll. And so it's really easy to accidentally go a month or two without healthcare insurance. Again, this is where a fee-only financial advisor or a health insurance specialist can help you. Back to Drill Sergeant Azul. All right, now for the toughest challenge in front of us. And that is your head game, your mind game, being tough mentally. Okay, that's the last we'll see of Drill Sergeant Azul. But it really comes down to what's your identity outside of work, right? Many of us have been working 20, 30, 40 years, and a lot of our identity gets tied up into our work identity. And so getting over that and transitioning into our retirement identity. But I'll tell you, we all have this transition work in front of us. And whether we do that transition work when we're 50, 55, 65, or 70, it's in front of us. So why not do it now? And I really like a phrase that, I'm paraphrasing it here, but if you think the price of the reflective work that you need to do is high, wait till you get the bill from regret. So the reality, YouTube's all about quick fixes and easy solutions. This is not a quick fix. This is not an easy solution. And candidly, you probably have about 100 hours of reflective work to get an idea of what your passion and your identity is going to be outside of work. Now, if you already have that, good for you, but many of us don't. And so a couple exercises that you can do. Number one, I suggest reading a book by a gentleman by the name of Arthur Brooks. The book's called From Strength to Strength. I'm sorry, it's not from, but it's just called Strength to Strength. And it talks about how we age, how we evolve and kind of the roles that we play in the world. It's super, super helpful. Another really good book is called Solve for Happy by Mo Gawdat, Gawdat. Super helpful. And then a really interesting reflective book, and it's one of the classics. It's called Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And Marcus Aurelius was the last of the five what are called the good Roman emperors, right? So this is a guy that had everything. And Plato talked about, the best king, the best emperor is what he called a philosophical king, a philosophical emperor, somebody that thought deep thoughts and really looked at their role as service to their constituents, service to their kingdom. And Marcus Aurelius was really big on that, and was really a philosophical king, thought deep thoughts. He had access to everything. He had all the power in the world, right? A Roman emperor at the peak of the Roman Empire. And he was thinking about, how do I help my people? In fact, he's considered to be one of the last of the good emperors because Rome went through a pandemic during his rule, much like we just went through, right? But he didn't have the rDNA, I think it was, whatever our new vaccine is, right? So he didn't have the power of science behind him, but he did have the power of leadership. Now here, I want to leave you with this, because you've heard me say this before. If you're 60 years old, you likely have less than 1,000 weeks of healthy active time in front of you. And Marcus Aurelius is a great example. As smart as he was, as good of a ruler as he was, he died at 59. So I think that's an important wake-up call for all of us. None of us have forever. This is your healthy, active time. I hope this boot camp was super helpful for you. If you found this to be helpful, I have another video here that's kind of part 2. Once you go through this boot camp type effort, these are 8 things that I want you to stop doing in order to enjoy your 50s, your 60s, and your retirement more. Again, it's here. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.